So, welcome everyone to this week's episode of Organic Matters, the podcast brought to you by the Irish Organic Association. And we are in a very, very scenic location today in County Offaly in Lough Boora Discovery Park, overlooking a beautiful lake with swans and ducks, and the sun is out. And here, who gets to see this view every day, is Sean Clancy, who's in charge of the Organic Café here. Sean, thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
You've just put down in front of me a beautiful latte with a heart shaped in front of it, but you haven't always been making artisan coffees with heart shapes in them, have you?
No. I started off life as a psychiatric nurse and then took over the family farm, and then we went into food production. We had a food truck. We did so many things, whatever, but just to try and find somewhere we were comfortable and somewhere where we could get value for everything that we made and our produce. So I suppose the evolution into a cafe and a restaurant came, I suppose, because of COVID. Our food truck, where we would, let's say, have specifically done our burgers, veggie burgers, whatever else, it basically stopped because of COVID. All the concerts, all the outside events. So luckily enough, I suppose it's an ill wind that doesn't blow some good. We were left in a situation here where a tender came up for the cafe here, and we were successful. And then in terms of a restaurant, we were approached to take over a restaurant, and everything just fell into place.
You make it sound yeah, everything just kind of fell into place. But for the average kind of farmer, because you're a beef farmer, for the average farmer to go from, something even with like a food truck to be like, oh sure, will we take on we'll take on a cafe? Oh, we will. Oh sure, we'll take on a restaurant. Oh sure, we just take it on. But I mean, go back a step for me. So the home farm at home. So how many acres are you farming, and what's
There's,
there?
220 acres, 70 acres of forestry. We have a suckler to beef enterprise where we have 30 suckler cows. They're continental cows crossed with an Angus bull. So that's essentially the starting point in terms of our farming enterprise. We also have a food production unit at the side of the house, and so I mean we have a very systematic approach to our farming practices. So everything fits in, so we can sort of manage it without, it's a lot of hours, but it's a lot of planning. But we have, let's say, since I suppose we began the whole process in 2005 and became fully certified in 2007. So the farm is pretty easy to run in terms of I have two sons as well who are very, very helpful on the farm. But it's a very simple enterprise.
Is it kind of a spring calving system, and then do you carry all of the calves then to beef essentially? And what age do you slaughter them at?
We basically have all our calving finished by probably maybe the 14th of February, and then we carry everything on the farm, and we would kill our cattle from probably maybe 20 months to 24. Because they're Angus, they're very easy finished, don't require a huge amount of inputs in terms of grains or organic beef nuts or whatever, but they would get a certain amount during the winter months, but essentially it's a grass-based system.
And would you have always had it in your head, say, because a lot of farmers in a suckler system have an off-farm job, but would you have always had it in your head that you want to finish your own beef and sell your own beef, and is that kind of how the cafe developed onto that?
Yeah, I suppose how it really developed was that my wife was a teacher and she had given up her job to go into food production. We were making organic soups, pestos, hummuses, and supplying to a number of stores in Dublin. And then it sort of evolved from that. We needed to sort of take a more sort of pragmatic approach in terms of the economics of a farm. Do we need to be dependent on selling cattle at the end of the year, grant-based systems? So we essentially wanted to have more control. So from that then we evolved into a catering unit. Then from that we started to process our own meat and sell in a number of stores in Dublin. But again, we'll say there's always something that pops up. The economic downturn, it became unviable, so we then moved towards focusing on food. We felt that we had gained enough experience and that we were confident enough to go out and essentially earn a living, but also use all the products, our own beef, our own source local suppliers. So from that point of view, it was just a no-brainer.
What struck me when I came in here was just suddenly the birds started singing. You know, you're driving on a motorway and then suddenly you're in Offaly, and then suddenly you're getting a bit further and you realise that you're suddenly surrounded by lakes and swans, and then you see a sign, this big sign for it, the Organic Café, and it just seems to slot in so well with the whole area. I mean, how has the feedback been from people?
The feedback's been so positive. But I mean, we were, let's say, when we initially took over the cafe, we were given a sort of a 10-day lead-in time to opening it. So it was quite sort of frenetic. We were very busy. So it was a learning curve for the first. But again, the advantages of COVID, there was only, we'll say, takeaway service. So we could sort of evolve and we could see where we needed to go, what we needed to do. The challenges of sourcing, we'll say we have a fridge full of all organic drinks or whatever. We wanted to move away as well from the sort of typical cafe of plastics, and we wanted to bring in fruit, we wanted to bring in, to reflect maybe details of the park as well. So we were very lucky that, people really bought into it and they've seen it for what it was, and they've seen that, it's a good products that we produce. And there's no huge price difference. I mean, we'll say all the coffees are organic, the milk, the cheeses, Pádraig Fahey from Beach Lawn, our organic farm, we get all his veg, fruit boxes. So from that point of view, it was easy because we had everything within probably a 14 to 20 mile radius.
So break down, so I have this latte in front of me, so break down, where's the milk come from and where has the coffee come from?
The milk is from Mossfield Organic Farm. It's based in Clarine. We also get their beautiful Mossfield cheese. The coffee is Blake's Organic. That comes from Drumshanbo, where it's roasted up there. Fantastic. The feedback from the coffee is absolutely fantastic.
I have to say, it's one of the nicest coffees I've had in ages. It's really, really good.
Yeah, and I think it marries in well, particularly with the milk, because it's full fat. And people are actually so surprised that the coffee is so milky and it's so rich. And it sort of brings out the flavour of the coffee. But I mean, the coffee itself, it just speaks, the coffee that we get from Blake's, it's absolutely fantastic.
And I walked in and it's not early enough for lunch, unfortunately, but I was salivating looking at the menu. So give listeners just a taste, I suppose, a teaser taste of what's on the menu today.
Yeah, well, every day we have tomato and basil soup, which is freshly made on the premises. Again, using all local produce from Pádraig Fahey's Beach Lawn Farm. We have the honey glazed ham and Mossfield cheddar with a selection of salads from Pádraig. We have the cool fin sun-dried tomato bap with Mossfield cheddar. That's the vegetarian option, and it's absolutely, I mean, it's beautiful. It is. I mean, I enjoy it. Which
oh, do you? Yeah.
I'm a beef farmer, but I enjoy it. It speaks for itself. But we have a chicken sandwich again with local salad leaves or whatever. Then we have numerous salad boxes, again using all the local produce or whatever. And then we bake our own gluten-free organic cakes here as well, and all, let's say, a selection of organic drinks, organic bars, every sort of a treat. But again, we're trying to reach that threshold of 70% of organic produce.
Is that what it has to be called an organic cafe?
Yeah,
so what is it? 70% of the produce has to be organic. Is that it?
Of your turnover. So I think we've hit the threshold of 84% now. So we're just going through the process of getting our certification. I think the challenge is to source product. that's always the challenge. I mean, you can get certainly so many pieces of the jigsaw, but to get that complete jigsaw is a huge challenge. We're lucky that we deal with Irish Whole Foods, but again, it's at the minute it's difficult to get fully 100% ingredients, and for those where we can. It's fine, but for others, then it's almost.
Give me an example. What's the hardest thing to get?
At the minute, flour.
Really?
Yeah.
Of all and we've got so much good press. Like I was down at Mark Galander's and all the organic flour that seems to be on the market now.
Because we're aiming as well towards gluten free, and we faced there was a 2-month waiting list on some of the products, right. But we've now sort of got a regular supply. But at probably maybe 2 months ago it was a challenge. Yeah. But I mean, a lot of it is, it's imported, which again is in itself is we prefer to sort of look around locally. But that we try and focus on what we can produce. Outside of that, we look at the sort of the long-term picture that we'll eventually get there, but they're small steps at the minute.
I get the sense from you that you're very firm in your mindset in that you want everything to be as locally sourced as possible and as organic as possible as well. Has that always been the case? Have you always been that kind of single-minded about it?
Yeah, I felt the need that if you went down that organic route, that I mean, you had to have sort of firm beliefs in it, and you had to support, let's say, other producers. And as I said, our food truck was, let's say, a case in point in terms of everything out of it. Was we had our own beef, we had Coolfin bakery, we had Mossfield cheese, we had Beachlawn Farm, and it was in a 20-mile radius. But that was so easy to manage. But I think once you went into sort of a cafe restaurant, you face more challenges in terms of people want a bigger variety, and you could stay very narrow, have a very narrow menu, but it wouldn't suit everyone. So from that point of view, again, there's challenges that we have to sort of face every day, but we'll eventually get there.
What does your day look like? Do you get up at the crack of dawn and kind of cast an eye over the cows and be like, you're all standing, you're all fine, and then you're like at the same time swiping through your phone looking at orders? I mean people have been thinking, how does he run a farm and do this as well?
Yeah, we have probably around 7 o'clock. I'll go down and I'll check on.
Fake news, it's earlier than that.
We go down, check the cattle. But again, as I said, we have a systematic approach to our farm, and we have a paddock-based system. We have a calving that ends. It's very animal focused, so they would be very healthy anyway. But it's just a case of obviously to have observed them every day. So we have again, as I said, paddock-based system. Grass is always in front of them. They're very close to the eye, so they're very easy manage. So that's, let's say, from 7. I probably land here at maybe 8:30. There's a lot of prep to be done. And we finish here at probably by the time we've everything done around 6 o'clock. Then it's back to the farm. There's some stuff to be done there or whatever, and maybe 8 o'clock we'd finish up. And I have 2 young teenagers as well. They have to be brought to hurling and football training. So it's.
And your wife is running the restaurant inside.
Yeah, so sort of we're like ships in the night, but it's we're getting to the point that we can actually manage it better. But again, there's a huge labour shortage in terms of to get staff. We're lucky that we have some very good core staff, but it's a challenge every day of the week just to sort of let's say have a rota, try and work around staff shortages or whatever. So that's essentially a 7-day period at the minute. I mean, I think I've worked 24 days in a row. So we're getting to the point where girls finish college. There's a number of them then that can manage here. My oldest son can manage here, but Orla has been looking for a chef for the last year. So it's hugely challenging, very labour intensive. Probably not for everyone, but we're hoping to get to a point where we can sort of maybe take a slight step back. But we're very cognizant of the fact that we want to sort of maintain high standards, maintain quality. But I think with a lot of the staff that we have, they have sort of bought into the fact that we want to maintain those high standards. So that's just basically it at the minute.
And you're busy as well because there's customers arriving and coming and going. But it strikes me as well that even though you're busy and you're flat out, you're quite content in what you're doing as well. Like I meet a lot of farmers and they just like constantly anxious or constantly rushing and racing, but they don't really know what it's for. I feel like you have kind of a system in place where you know what it's for and you know your output. Is that very important to you that you kind of you've bought into it as well as say your staff has, and that you know the turnover and you know the cycle?
Yeah, I suppose coming from a nursing background where sort of everything was based on systems, it was a great help. But I'm pretty much relaxed and very sort of focused on planning, that I know exactly what's ahead of me tomorrow, next week. So in terms of, I like to be sort of a certain amount of control of how things are going to go for the week, and that we can plan ahead accordingly. So, I mean, whilst it's very busy, I mean, I think once you have it very well organised, and you know where you're going and you know where the end game is, it becomes easier, and particularly over time, you learn by your mistakes, and every day is a learning day. And I think that if you get to the point where you think that everything is going to run smoothly, I think you're just kidding yourself. You just need to be aware that, you know, sometimes things will happen and you have to react accordingly. Have
you created something that you feel your sons or the next generation can buy into as well? Because generational renewal is huge, especially suckler farmers. Like all the Macra na Firma events I go to, it's all focused on the dairy side of it. Because dairy is the only thing that's really making money, you know, conventionally and even organically. But you've a suckler farm system and your sons seem to be happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, I suppose, I mean, I remember as a young guy myself, similar to those when they were teenagers, we were involved in the farm. But we were also encouraged, let's say, to trace our own dreams or sort of whatever journeys we decided to go on, and which we did. But I think there was always that sort of, you know, almost right to return or wanted to return. And I think I'll sort of approach it with them, you know, it's nice for them to be involved. They also understand the amount of hard work. And it's a great learning experience in terms of developing their social skills. So let's say from a family farm, it's almost a sort of, there's a therapeutic element to it, in, let's say, their upbringing. Whatever journeys they take, you know, I certainly would never put pressures on them to return or to sort of focus on farming, because that pressures were never put on me, and I returned quite gratefully, and I appreciated more. And I appreciated more, let's say, the hard work that, let's say, the previous generations of the Clancys would have done, and it makes it much more enjoyable, let's say, to carry on that tradition. But hopefully, you know, whatever journey they take, but if they return to it, I'd be delighted. But it has to be economically viable, and that is probably the biggest challenge, because, I mean, farms, to be standalone enterprises, I don't think, you know, they need something else. There needs to be something else that can bring in money or whatever and make it more viable. And when it is, it's much more enjoyable, and it's much more sort of satisfying that you can actually reap the sort of the rewards of your hard work, and particularly when it's your own produce as well, that you can see its starting date and where it ends up. And the joy it brings to people as well, but also to link in with other sort of producers and farmers as well.
Yeah, because it's a real network you're talking about, where everything comes from.
Yeah.
You know, it's a network that's there. I'm thinking the learning curve for you, though, you know, who did you go to for help? Was it either your local enterprise office? You know, who was it who sat you down and said, okay, this is how you learn to make a coffee, this is how you fill out forms, you know, because there was a lot of red tape involved in cafes and things like that as well.
I mean, Knots were a huge help. I mean, they provided support.
So that's the National Organic Training Skills Network for anyone.
Yeah, they were absolutely fantastic. We got support from Blonde and Bergen, who we got for a day here to sort of look at running a cafe. Orla had done a number of courses as well through Knots, on running sort of restaurants or whatever, which were absolutely fantastic. So it set us up that we knew exactly where we were going. We got barista training. We also got sort of, you know, ideas of where we could source product or whatever. And again, as I said, the Blake's coffee from Drumshanbo is absolutely fantastic. So nuts are fantastic. The Irish Organic Association, again, I mean, they're second to none in terms of just basically ring them and they're at the end of the phone if you need sort of ideas, or not even ideas, but if there's regulations that you're unsure of or something like that, they'll set you straight. And they're, again, as I said, they're just at the end of the phone and they're fantastic.
And customer feedback in terms of organics, how's that been?
Again, it's, I mean, the ethos of the park, and a lot of the people that you're getting would be older and they have a great insight into it. But then there's a younger generation that probably are buying into it as well. But you know, it faces its challenges too, because an awful lot of people aren't familiar with the whole process, and they see organic has been maybe elitist, or that maybe, you know, take a step back. But I think when they understand it, they buy into it, and I think when they taste the different foods that we provide or whatever, they're absolutely blown away by it. That it's actually quite a quality product that can stand on its own 2 feet.
Okay. Well, for anyone listening, if they're there's another happy customer. For anyone listening, if you're in the Offaly area, do please come. And as you can see, it's dog friendly as well. But Sean, thank you very much, and everyone, you've been listening to the Organic Matters podcast, brought to you by the Irish Organic Association. And if you want any more information, you can visit www.irishodganicassociation.ie. But make sure to subscribe and bring a dog if you're in the area.